Signature TV, news in your pocket.
A very big thank you to you, our viewers, for staying with us till this very moment. Thank you so much for joining. If you're just joining, this is still Signature Morning on Signature TV. And over to you, Uche.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, public-private partnership has proven to be, an effective model for infrastructure and service delivery across the world. And various African countries have leveraged on PPPs, to address deficits in different areas of their government. Now, in Nigeria, however, despite the numerous frameworks, policies, and even a dedicated Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, the ICRC, PPP adoption remains low compared to the infrastructure needs of the country. And that leads to the question, why is Nigeria not embracing PPP? And talking to us about this issue is Mark Adeyemi Adedayo. He's a certified PPP expert. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Right. Now, many Nigerians are not entirely clear on what PPPs entail. So can you help us break down, in simple terms, what public-private partnership is and why it is important for Nigeria's development?
Thank you so much. The public represents the people, which is represented by the government. So it means services that government need to provide for the people. That's why it's public. The private means the private sector, operators, financiers, come to partner with government to provide such services. For example, water, energy, ports, roads, these are public goods. And the government has a social contract with the people to provide those things to the people because they are essential. But for several reasons, financial reasons, managerial capacity, bringing private sector with the enterprise spirit to make sure that those things are sustainable, then you need the private sector to partner with government at the federal level, at the state level, even at the local government level, so that these services can be sustained over time, and then we can have optimum efficiency. So basically, that's the simple description of PPPs. But it now comes in different shades and variants. Some of them you call the private sector to come and build a particular infrastructure, own it for some time, run it, and return the asset back to government after a period of time. Some you bring in the private sector to just engage in management. It can be a performance enhanced management where sometimes the private sector brings his money. Sometimes he enters into some level of agreement with you. If you achieve some milestones, then he gets paid and all that. But for that period, he manages it, he runs it, he maintains it, he provides the services, and some could come to the vertical level, maybe from source to customer, and some can also come, complementary and lateral level, like when I talk about the ports, where PPPs are in different terminals and different areas of operation of a port. So that's my simple description of PPPs.
When many people hear PPP, or when listeners hear about PPP, they become very much worried if it's privatization or a way for the elites, or should we say politicians, to enrich their pocket. So I want to understand, how fair is that perception, and how do you think we could rebuild the trust of the people?
I mean, naturally, when you're talking about PPPs, they require a political will of government. They require financing, both local and international financing. It could be local, but some of the time, because some of the things you need to import and all that, you may also need international financing. So it's an elitist thing, a business elitist thing, because you need money. And then when the financier is coming, he also wants to see demonstrated political will. So there's no way you can divorce this from business, from politics. There's no way you can divorce this. The most important thing is transparency, communication. When we communicate properly, when when there's transparency in how you put it together, then you earn the public trust. So there's not supposed to be worries. It's only how we go about it at times in our client that is a major problem, you know. So basically, that's one of the things that we need to address. But PPP itself is safe, is beautiful. It builds us out of supply gaps. We need to provide energy, we need to provide water, we need to provide good roads, we need to have trains. For example, in Nigeria, there's supposed to be trains all over the place. And if we wait for government revenue to achieve this, it's going to take a very long time. And the people will continue to suffer. Some of us who were young when we saw some roads being constructed, until date, those roads are not constructed. We desire that there could be trains all over the country, yet it's the level of kilometer of train to the traveling masses, it's so low. So to fill this supply gap, we need to actually encourage private sector operators, private sector financing, and maybe in the course of this conversation, there are so many structures in place, there are financial sources in place that are actually designed that could fit into PPP arrangement. But if we're transparent, if we communicate appropriately and communicate wide to all stakeholders, would earn their confidence, and they will know that ultimately it's for the public good. And I want to say this: if anybody is building a road, if anybody is building a water facility, if anybody is building a power plant or whatever under a PPP arrangement, and the arrangement is that this asset is coming back to the government in the next 15, 20 years. So the people should understand that in the next 15, 20 years, when they are getting old and their children are coming up, they will meet a working asset, because somebody has run it for 20 years on a business model. He has maintained it. He kept it working because it was bringing returns to him. At the same time, it's giving services to the people. So we're only helping ourselves to make sure that these services are available for a very long time.
All right. Now, despite having the ICRC and several other policies in place, the PPP uptake in Nigeria is still quite low. So, in your opinion, what do you think accounts for the slow adoption and implementation of public-private partnerships?
Yeah, I once talked about political will, and of course, this elephant in the country, the issue of corruption and all that. But basically, first of all, political will. A lot of our government officials are not enthusiastic about PPPs. There are regulatory agencies, like you rightly said. Even at the state level, some states already have PPP units, in their Ministry of Finance and all that. And but the first thing anybody wants to see is the political will, is the willingness to allow PPP contracts, even to identify it. There are many cases where we have approached state institutions. We've gone there with even financiers, and then you see it's either the governor is not really sure, or it's a commissioner, or it's the head of agencies. There's this feeling that you want to take away what belongs to us. and we keep saying that you have a sick baby that is dying, that is even dead in your hand. And we're saying, please, let's revive this baby. When the baby is matured, we return him back to you. They push you out, that baby remains dead. 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years down the line, they don't serve the people and they don't allow somebody who has identified a business case to do so. So that political will is there, is always there. Then the corruption, and of course, the entire macroeconomic situation in the country. You're looking at our the volatility of our exchange foreign exchange market, even inflationary trends and all that. So when you are dealing with outsiders, they can't actually plan because they don't know there could be a spike at any time. And of course, I need to talk about our judiciary system. Our judiciary, we need to earn the confidence of both local and international business people. But some of the time, even if you don't have a regulatory agency, agreements are sacrosanct. If they have a trust in our judiciary system, people will put in their money because they know that this judiciary is solid and is incorruptible. But when the perception index of the integrity of our judiciary is in question, you know, of course, there could be problem. Even when you are not sure the government is committed, or when you are sensing political risk, that the governor who is interested in PPP is going to last for another 5 years. You don't know if the coming Pharaoh will not know Joseph. But if you have confidence in the judiciary system and you have a very solid agreement, you don't mind if another governor comes. The agreements are there. We go to court and the court will do justice, you know. So, but for financing PPPs, I can tell you that there are sources of finance locally. Our providence fund, the pension fund, is massive, and that enough can do a lot. And then we're still good in the eyes of a lot of international players too. But when those little issues that bring risk elements comes into play, it often discourages uh, private investors. Some of the time too, the investors too are also guilty. They don't prepare well. They overpromise in terms of their models. They don't study the system. They just rush into into a sector without knowing the inherent risk in the sector. They don't know the operational risk. Maybe because it's somebody in government that beckon them to just come into a business that they don't know anything about. So all those procurement issues, even when you are real and you come and you find out that you are competing with, fair competition with somebody else.
All right, Mr. Mark, still speaking on the regulatory bodies, how do you think, what do you think that these regulatory bodies are doing? Are they really doing what they should do? What is the procedure or method of keeping these public and private bodies in check, especially in the area of accountability and transparency?
The little I know about some of the regulatory bodies is that they have qualified people, they have framework, beautiful standard operating procedures and all that. We've seen that in a lot of our regulatory bodies. But then, when it comes to at the individual decision-making level and all that, the law needs to be strong about punishing people who break the law. So basically, you cannot rule out that there could be one or two corrupt persons or practices, somebody making unnecessary demands and all that. But if at the overall level, people know that when push turns to shove, I have a court to run to. And then, of course, the government needs to be intentional about convincing investors that they won't condone uh, any kind of misbehavior, across the sector within the value chain. So it's important. The government needs to be a leader in this. So more often than not, when people, appointees, civil servants, even legislators, when they know that the man at the top really wants things to be done, they don't have any choice than to fall in line. So it's number one, it still comes from political head, and then we need to strengthen our institutions, especially the judiciary institutions, that people can seek redress when they are confident that they can seek redress. If there's any erring person who is going off uh, off line, they can always bring such persons to book. But I'm confident, except at the state levels. I know a lot of states are not yet there. And that's where we actually really need to focus on. But when you talk about real service delivery in many cases is at the state level. You will see that even recently there's some tweaking to the power sector law that can empower some states to begin to do some regulatory stuff and all that. So we have 36 states and Abuja, and they really need to rise up to the occasion. They're the ones that are closest to the people, and there's so many opportunities down there. So the states need to set up unit structures, and then, of course, bring out a list of what they want to do, put it in their budget, let people know that this one is slated for PPPs and all that. But there are so many opportunities all over the country, even at the very local level, even on sanitation, you know, so many things. Big one for big players, small one for small players, and everybody will be happy for it. But the states, the political leadership, and then the technocrats need to really put it out there that they're serious about it.
Right, Mr. Adeyemi Adedayo. Now, you mentioned while you were speaking about frameworks or structures, particularly in the judiciary and other areas, to give the foreign investors the confidence to want to come and invest. But we know that these PPP capitals are capital intensive. How attractive, aside from all these frameworks that you've spoken about, how attractive is Nigeria's investment climate to even make private investors to think about committing to long-term projects in the country?
Before, let me talk about availability of market. The demand is there. The demand for services are there, and there is an established gap already. People have been denied of basic services over the years. So anybody that comes to fill in the gap would definitely meet huge demand and what we can call a business case. So that itself makes it difficult for people to look away from Nigeria. Secondly, regardless of all the turbulence in our political system, we have been running a democracy since 1999, unbroken democracy since 1999. And power has changed, and even political parties have changed, and government still continues. So regardless of the weakness that is perceived in our electoral system, in our judicial system, we have a track record that since 1999, we've been running unbroken democracy. And then all these structures that have been put in place, you mentioned the ICRC and that, they've been consistent over time. Yes, we've done some cancellations, maybe like the refineries and all that. But look at the telecommunication, look at the ports, we've scored more successes in terms of PPPs that are sustained, over time. So those are good credentials for anybody to want to come into the country to play. Then the other small issues, they're not small really, because they spike risk issues. Because that's one thing about PPPs. People do their risk analysis and they ask for different kind of, mitigating, whatever to mitigate those risks. And some of the time, our political people too are not willing to meet those risks. We should, if that's the reality on ground, But then, it's not, the climate is not too bad. We only need to address those few issues, and then we'll continue to have more people coming into the sector than what they are doing now.
Well, all right. We hope that Nigeria would do better on that. But then let's talk about the implication. What do you think are the social impact, fiscal impact, economic impact of, public-private partnership?
At the service level, at the individual level, when the services are not available, they are more expensive. I'll give you an example. Public water supply. Most Nigerians drink table water. We call it pure water. I'm sure you know pure water. That's what most Nigerians drink. And you know how much it costs. If you put it per cubic meter, it can never, the public supply can never be as expensive as that. So people don't realize that they pay more when a road, an interstate road, critical road infrastructure is bad. You pay more in terms of time, in terms of accidents, in terms of the cost of maintaining vehicles and all that. Look at our power sector. Whatever anybody wants to talk about it, we pay more using our generators. We really pay much more, and we cannot use generator 24/7. So we also suffer the consequence of non-availability of those services from those utilities. And we've waited for too long for government to catch up. And the reality is that the government does not have the resources to do so. So the benefits to the people is priceless. The services will be available, and there'll be a ripple effect, there'll be a multiply effect to down to people's life, to people's health, to people's wealth, to people's businesses. And that's number one. Then number two, of course, it also helps the entire financial system. There are going to be, different kinds of services, financial services, and then it's going to boost demand for professionals, demand for goods and services. I mean, there are a lot of places where you don't have services. When the money is available, then everywhere we turn upside down. There's a particular state we've been asking them, PPP, let's do PPP for your water in your capital city. Your water city, your capital city has problem with water and all that. And then all the professionals are down. The water corporation is not working, and everywhere is just dead. So I told them, I said, can you imagine if we bring about between 10 and 15 billion into this place and we begin to lay pipes, we begin to fix pump? Can you imagine how many people will start working again? Can you imagine the multiply effect even on your economy? You don't have the resources, and yet you're not allowing us to come, and then the people are suffering even for lack of services. And then if the public infrastructure, public utilities are working, it also helps the private businesses. I mean, very common example is that of energy, is that of power. This interview now, you've noticed that I have gone on and off generator and NEPA about 3 times now. Can you imagine if I'm in a convoy of production and there's massive reliance on energy and then it's cutting and all that? So it's a win-win. It's a win-win for everybody.
All right. Now, before we go, I'd like you to tell us, what do you think must change for PPPs to become a major driver of Nigeria's infrastructural growth?
The political will, the leadership must imbibe it. the president, the governors, the local government chairman. It starts from them. I mean, you know, the kind of patriarchal system we know. Everybody's looking at the body language of the man at the top. If you want it done, people will run with it. That is the starting point. The moment we have them pushing for it, then everybody begins to run. There's this mentality that you want to come and take what belongs to us at the lower level. The people in the MDAs are saying, look, you want to take what belongs to me. I'm the one that is, this is my mandate. Why are you taking it away from me? But you're not doing anything with the mandate, you know? And then there's this mentality that you want to come and make money. Public supply is not private business. It's not a stroll in the park. There are so many operational risks that are inherited risks, and the government must give them soft landing, enabling environment, you know, and that's why it has to start from the top. They said, look, you guys, let this thing work. Stop making unnecessary demands. Stop dragging them. We are working together. They're coming to help us on what we're unable to do. You know, so for me, there must be an advocacy at the top for the top people, and then maybe all the legislative houses. Let there be a loud voice that look, let this go to the private sector. The private sector says there's a business case. Let them have it. Let's free up resources for some other things. Put government money in what the private sector is willing to take on. You know, if that message flows from the top, I'm sure we have the structure in place, we have professionals in place, we have institutions, including financial institutions, that are ready to say the risk is worth taking. But the big man at the top has blown the whistle.
Okay, Mr. Adeyemi Adedayo, can you tell us about the P3 PAN Association? What is that about?
Okay. Of course, we're talking about PPPs, and there are so many professionals that are either involved in PPPs or are already trained, exposed, and are willing to take on PPP. So our association is also responding to the demand of the hour, that every one of us that has one or two contributions to make, let's come together and let the government and the people know that there are people who are well trained, who are dedicated to make sure that PPP works in Nigeria. So we have people from different walks of life. We have economists, we have engineers, we have lawyers, you know, people who are already doing one level of PPP or the other, people who are trained, certified, you know, some of us are certified, you know, PPP specialists and all that. And we are loaded with skills, but we want the tough. Already we are primed to play. We want the tough to play. And these are some of the things that convinces investors when they look into the country and they see our association, they see that as an association of competent professionals. They know that when they come, they can have local transaction advisors and all that. So the issue of capacity to manage PPPs is not the problem in Nigeria. Hundreds of us, you know, over the place, environmentalists who are PPP focused and minded and all that, you know. So we are like a very strong plank and a very backbone for any PPP in Nigeria. You don't need to look far. If you are running into issues about who should advise you, it is contact us. We give you, we hand over experts to you who will support you, you know, and that also mitigates risk a lot, because it's a management capacity risk that you have just addressed, when you have people who can actually do risk analysis for you and tell you this is the way the structure should go, this is the kind of money you should use. There's no business case here except the government provides subsidies. You know, they will give you advice that will comfort both the government and then the private investor and even the public, because we also have communication experts who know how to communicate PPPs, the value proposition of PPPs, you know. So we are a strong response to the importance and the inevitability of PPPs to meet our infrastructure and public service gap.
All right. Mr. Mark, sorry. What simple instructions do you think Nigerians can actually use today to make, let's say, the next 5 big projects possible and quite bankable?
Please, if these projects are not executed now, they may not be executed in the next 15, 20 years if the government does not have the money. So if there are people who feel they can invest their money, provide the services, make modest returns, manage, maintain the assets, and return it back to government in the next 15, 20 years, encourage them. The government should encourage them. The public should encourage them. The public should not say, we can't pay, because you're already paying. The public should not say it's not our asset and it's vandalized. It is your asset. We are only holding it in trust for you for the next 15, 20 years. If you allow miscreants to loot it, you are looting your own assets. So everybody has a role to play in this, and that's the message to everyone, the governments, the operators themselves, and also the public that we intend to serve. Thank you.
Can actually bring communities, locally along when it comes to this privatization or public-private partnership.
Yeah, sure. So let me just give you an example. Our markets, go and check their toilets. You can't use those toilets, And the market management can have a PPP arrangement, and the toilets are going to be speckling clean. And life is easy for everybody. Even at that level, because some people don't see, we only see the big road, the big airport and all that. But even as basic and as close to the people as toilets in public spaces, in parks, in markets, says you can't have a relationship with them and then have an arrangement that is sustainable. So it's the community has a role to play. They must have a role to play and be willing to play it well too.
Can you highlight some of the successful or ongoing PPP projects that are in Nigeria currently?
Okay. Yes. There's this MM2 with my company, which was done during Chief Olusegun Obasanjo's regime, is still running. That's Murtala Mohammed 2. It's one of the best run in this country. Anytime I go there, I love it. It has always been so, So that, and then there are a lot of PPPs in the ports. I'm so impressed about the ports. So many terminals, 36 in the ports, different terminals that are run under PPP arrangement, So I think the coastal route is supposed to be a PPP arrangement between, I think government is taking 30%. That was what the government said. I hope that's still what is happening. And I think the ICT backbone, as an ICT backbone, communication backbone, that I think the National Communications Commission is running with a private operator. We also have 1 or 2 water facilities, but at the estate level, there've been some PPPs in water and some in the time past, but they eventually were cancelled. So, but I know in terms of roads, there were some attempts that failed. Even the same by Courtney that wanted them to try Lagos Ibadan Expressway, but for so many reasons, it didn't work. The government had to buy it back and take it back from him. So I think there's some hospitals, about 2 hospitals in Abuja that also has PPP arrangement. And then, of course, a lot of different variants of maybe the private sector operating the commercial area of a particular institutions and all that, bringing them to help them to collect revenue. So those are different shades of PPP, but those real big ones that we can always showcase anytime. You can, of course, the power sector, when they brought in the discos, the distribution companies, and then they even some of the power producing plants that are run by private organizations. So a lot has happened in the power sector. Yes, there are challenges, but I appeal to the government to to make sure that they don't allow those things to die. Rather, they should look for how to support those companies to make sure that they are still running. Yes, they should clean it up. They should deal with inefficiencies. They shouldn't condone that. But at the same time, they must not allow those things to collapse and return it fully back to government. The private sector will still do better in a lot of in those places. They need to make concessionary loans available to them, you know, and some of the time they need to have maybe some uptake contracts with them because some of them they produce, there's no uptake. What is uptaking it? And then the issue of tariff too, very important. If you look at their books and it's that they need to charge a particular tariff, and you know that the people can't pay, then the government needs to come with subsidy. It's still going to cost the government less to get those services available than taking it over and running it itself and then running it aground again, you know. So a lot of them are there, and some are also in the boarding stage. Hopefully, you know, they would come up stream soon, and then we can have good stories to tell.
Mark, thank you so much. Mr. Mark Adeyemi Adedayo, because of time, we would have to end the conversation right here. Thank you so much for staying tuned with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
All right. Thank you. And this is where we end the conversation on why Nigeria is not embracing public-private partnership. Thank you so much for staying tuned, and we'll go on a short break. When we return, our conversation continues.
With a population of about 36 million people, the Southeast is awash with stories. Every day on Southeast News, we tell the peculiar story of the Southeast and her people.
Our Southeast should be the Silicon Valley of Nigeria.
Their successes, achievements, and daily challenges. Do you have a Southeast story to share? Community achievements and challenges, completed and uncompleted projects, bad roads, water scarcity, erosion, flooding, insecurity, or even disagreements? Bring it on to Southeast News. On Southeast News, no story is too big or too small. Southeast News. Let's tell our story. Showing on Signature TV every weekday at 4 p.m. WAT, 1600 hours GMT.